There have been a lot of developments today. Perhaps the biggest, though, a full jury and slate of alternates are now picked and ready to go. The completion of the jury selection process tees up the first ever criminal trial of a former U.S. president for opening statements and weeks of testimony. Here to talk about the historic moment, NBC 10 legal analyst Mark Dana. Mark, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, we were expecting voir dire to last a bit longer than this. I know some people were talking about this even going a month, but we've already seen jurors who were sat be dismissed, a bit of a back and forth there. Could we run into that issue again here, either before opening arguments or even mid-trial?
Oh, sure. And that's why you have your alternates. But I would tell you, if you asked me how long jury selection would go a week ago, I would say probably 2 or 3 weeks. The fact that this trial had only a 1-week jury selection is remarkable. Having said that, it's intense. It's intense with high-profile cases, but you don't get any more high-profile than this. And as it relates to these jurors, some will peel off. The intensity is going to be severe. There's no sequestration, so they're going to be out in Manhattan when they're not listening to testimony, and it's going to be severe. It's going to be a high-intensity case, and so as a result, not many, but some of these jurors will peel off, and the alternates will have to come on. As for next week, I expect opening statements to start. There may be a few motions coming up, and then we'll go right into witnesses.
Absolutely, and I think just how quick they were able to find the jury and the alternate shows just how diverse New York City truly is. Now, I want to talk about the gag order. We've seen Trump talk a lot about it being instated by the judge in this case and other cases. Can you explain for our viewers what exactly a gag order is and how this restriction could impact either the public learning information?
Sure. Well, a gag order is basically the court telling defendants, prosecutors, people involved in the case, you cannot disparage people, you can't talk about certain things. That is all well and good. That's something that happens pretty routinely in such cases. The difference in this case, and the problem the court has, is that the defendant is the prospective Republican nominee, and therefore his attempt to say things that are political, which is a First Amendment right, comes into play. So when you have that situation, and I don't ever recall it taking place before, but since you have that situation, these gag orders can't be as stringent as probably the judge would like them to be because of that First Amendment right that Mr. Trump has.
Absolutely. We're talking about someone that has arguably one of the largest microphones and platforms, not only as a former president, but as a presumptive nominee. And I'm curious, could you talk to us about if he does violate the gag order again, what possible punishments is he looking at? I know there's a range of things.
Yeah, it could be anything from a fine to actual imprisonment. If he willfully violates it over and over again, anything can happen in a case like this. And it could happen that he would spend a night or two in jail, so he understands you can't violate this gag order. You can't be talking about relatives of other people who are involved in the case. You just can't do that. And I am quite sure that his lawyers have told him not to, because the worst thing that, as it would appear here, would be for him to either be fined or, in fact, jailed. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't think anybody on either side wants that to happen. But if it did happen, it would be not good for the defense.
And we're all going to be looking forward to seeing how opening statements goes. Mark, thank you for joining us and providing that insight tonight.
Absolutely. Take care, Leanne.